Hello everyone, I hope you all have been following my videos on the topic reproduction in humans. We have already discussed about the male reproductive system, the female reproductive system and the menstrual cycle. Today we will be discussing about fertilization and development of the embryo or the fetus. So let's start off. For that we again have to draw the female reproductive system. So we've already discussed a pair of ovaries which produces an egg every alternate month, the oviducal funnel, the fallopian tube, the uterus, the cervix and the vagina. Now, in the last video, we had discussed about how the ova or the egg, if it is not fertilized, then what happens to the uterine wall. Now, today we will be discussing if the egg is fertilized, what happens. So, as discussed earlier, when the egg or the ova starts developing inside the ovary, the uterine wall prepares itself to receive the embryo or the zygote. It becomes thick, the uterine wall becomes thick. It is richly supplied with blood. Now, on the 14th day, ovulation takes place. Now, we've already discussed what is ovulation. Ovulation is the release of the egg or the ovum from the ovary. So as soon as the egg is released, the oviducal funnel receives it. The egg now enters the fallopian tube. Now I have told you the fallopian tube is the only place where fertilization takes place. So during this time, if there is mating or if there is copulation, and suppose sperms are released from the male reproductive system into the female reproductive system, and then a sperm or many sperms have reached the fallopian tube during this time. So the egg or the ova is also present in the fallopian tube. The sperms are also present in the fallopian tube. Now, only one sperm can enter the ovum. There may be millions of sperms, but from them, only one sperm can enter the ovum. So, this fusion of the sperm, that is the male gamete, and the ovum, that is the female gamete, is termed as fertilization. So fertilization can occur only when the ovum is in the, or the egg is in the fallopian tube. So on the 14th day, we've already discussed about this. Ovulation takes place. The egg is released into the oviducal funnel. It enters the fallopian tube. During this time, if there is copulation or mating, the sperms have reached the fallopian tube. Then among these sperms, only one sperm can fertilize or fuse with the egg. And this process is known as fertilization. Now, once fertilization occurs, we already know in reproduction, the result of fertilization is a zygote, a single-celled zygote. Now this is no longer an ovum or an egg. Now it has become a zygote. This zygote now enters the uterus. The uterus has already prepared itself to receive the zygote. So every month that we have already discussed, the uterine wall prepares itself to receive the zygote. Now the zygote enters the uterus. It floats in the uterus for some days, about 10 days. Okay, so it floats in the uterus for some days. Then it attaches or fixes itself to the uterine wall. Okay, so 14th day it was released or ovulation took place. Then there was fertilization in the fallopian tube. A zygote was formed. The zygote entered the uterus. It floats in the uterus for about 10 days and then finally it fixes itself on the uterine wall. This process is known as implantation. So once the zygote fixes itself on the uterine wall, it is called implantation. So here the cell, now the zygote, it keeps on dividing to form a wall of cells and slowly there is development of the embryo. Now, from the date of implantation till the end of the second month, not the week, second month. So from the day of the implantation till the end of the second month, it is now called embryo. So now it is no longer a zygote, it is called an embryo. Then from the beginning of the third month till the baby is born, till birth, it is called fetus. So when fertilization takes place, zygote. After implantation, till the end of second month, embryo, and from the beginning of the third month till the birth, it is called fetus. Now, what are the different changes that takes place inside the uterus once this embryo starts developing? Now, this embryo or the fetus, it requires food. Okay, so where do they get the food from? They get the food from the mother. So how does it get the food from the mother? So this fetus or embryo is connected with a tubular or cord-like structure, and it attaches, this cord-like structure is attached to a disc-shaped structure which is fixed on the uterine wall. This cord-like structure, tube-like structure is called umbilical cord. And this disc-like structure which fixes itself on the uterine wall is called placenta. Now this is quite interesting because this is how the baby receives food and oxygen from the mother. Okay? And now when food is produced, that means it's taking in food, that means waste products is also produced. Since it is taking oxygen for respiration, carbon dioxide is also produced. So even the waste products is sent back to this umbilical cord into the placenta, which then sends it into the mother's blood. So this umbilical cord and the placenta helps in transporting food and oxygen from the mother to the fetus. And from the fetus, the waste products and carbon dioxide is released or carried by this umbilical cord and the placenta into the mother's blood. Now this is something very interesting, that the exchange of products, exchange of gases are taking place, the blood of the mother and the blood of the fetus never mix together. Very interesting. So even if there is exchange of food, waste products and gases, the blood of the mother and the blood of the child the baby fetus never fuses with each other. Now this fetus embryo is covered by a small bag-like structure. This bag-like structure is called amnion. or the amniotic sac. Okay, so the embryo is, or the fetus is covered by a bag-like structure which is known as amnion, and it is filled by a fluid which is known as the amniotic fluid. This fluid protects the baby, the growing fetus or the growing embryo, from mechanical shocks and injuries. So when the mother is walking, running, jumping, or she may fall down, the baby does not get easily injured because of this amniotic fluid. Now, I talked about implantation. I told you, or after fertilization, the zygote enters the uterus, floats in the uterus for 10 days, then it attaches itself to the uterine wall, and this process is known as implantation. So from the day of implantation till childbirth is known as gestation period. So from the day of implantation till the day of the childbirth, that period is known as gestation period, and in humans it lasts for more or less 280 days or 9 months. And commonly the gestation period is termed as pregnancy. So let's revise once more. On the 14th now, when the ovary produces the egg, or the egg is developing inside the ovary, the uterine wall prepares itself to receive the zygote. That means the uterine wall becomes thick, it is richly supplied with blood, and on the 14th day, the ovulation takes place. That means the egg is released. It is received by the oviducal funnel and it enters the fallopian tube. Now, during this time, if there is mating or copulation and the sperms have entered the fallopian tube, then the sperms fuses with the egg, and this is known as fertilization. And I told you only one sperm can fuse with the egg. So once fertilization takes place, a single-celled zygote is formed. This zygote now enters the uterus. It floats in the uterus for about 10 days, and then it fixes itself on the uterine wall. This process is known as implantation. Once implantation takes place, the zygote now starts dividing, and from the day of implantation to the second month, this is known as an embryo. Slowly development of the child takes place, and from the third month till birth, it is known as a fetus. The embryo or the fetus receives food from the mother through a cord-like structure known as umbilical cord, which is attached to a disc-shaped structure known as placenta, which is attached to the uterine wall. Now, it not only receives food and oxygen, but the waste products from the embryo and fetus is carried by this umbilical cord. The blood of the mother never fuses with the blood of the child. This embryo or fetus is covered by a thin membrane or a bag-like structure known as amnion, which is filled with amniotic fluid, which protects the baby or embryo or fetus from mechanical shocks and injuries. From the day of implantation till childbirth, the period is known as gestation period, or commonly termed as pregnancy. It lasts for 280 days or 9 months. So I hope you all understood how the development takes place in a child. And before I forget, one more thing. How is the sex of a child determined? Now, the sperm carries the genes. So, like one sperm may be Y, the other sperm may be X. Okay? Egg is always X. Okay, egg always carries the gene or the chromosome X, whereas the sperm always carries the chromosome, not always, it either carries the chromosome Y or the chromosome X. So if the sperm with chromosome Y fuses with the egg, then it becomes XY. That means it is a boy. And if a sperm with chromosome X fuses with the egg, then now it will be X from the egg and X from the sperm, XX, that means it will be a girl child. So the sex of the child is totally dependent on the sperm and not the egg. Egg always carries the X chromosome. It is the sperm which carries Y or X. It depends on which sperm fuses with the egg. So thank you everyone. Keep watching our videos. Like and subscribe my channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.